Top 5 Kennedy half dollars worth big money. Welcome to Numismatic Vault Extra. Today, we're going to explore some of the most valuable top 5 Kennedy half-dollar coins from the United States of America, United States. We'll break down their current market values, highlight famous era coins, and explain the specific conditions that make certain Kennedy half dollars rare, including high silver content, unique finishes, and different color shades that have become major players in the coin collector and investor world. These rare treasures are not just pieces of history. They are also among the most valuable coins collectors are actively hunting today. So, if you're a coin enthusiast, an investor, or someone who appreciates the beauty and significance of American currency, this video is for you. Backhand index pointing right. Let's get started with the first coin. Magnifying glass tilted left. The 1993 Kennedy half dollar struck at the Denver Mint is a coin many people have held in their hands without ever stopping to listen to the story it carries. At first glance it looks ordinary, almost quiet, yet behind that familiar portrait of President John F. Kennedy lives a deep legacy of American emotion, national memory, and the powerful belief that coins are more than metal. They are witnesses to history. Every Kennedy half dollar, including the 1993 D, was born from a nation still remembering loss, hope, and renewal. When the Kennedy half dollar was first introduced in 1964, it was not just a new coin, it was a national tribute. Americans demanded a permanent memorial after the assassination of President Kennedy, and the half dollar became a symbol of unity and mourning. By the time 1993 arrived, the coin was no longer made of silver for circulation, but its emotional weight had never faded. The design still carried the same message of leadership, optimism, and unfinished dreams. The 1993 D. Kennedy half dollar was struck during a time when half dollars were rarely used in everyday life. Most Americans had stopped spending them, quietly saving them in drawers, jars, and envelopes. This strange disappearance from circulation created a silent scarcity in daily commerce. Even though millions were minted, coins that are not used begin a second life, one where condition, preservation, and uniqueness become everything. While the 1993 D is composed of copper and nickel rather than silver, collectors do not judge a coin by metal alone. In the coin world, perfection, rarity, and mistakes often matter far more than composition. A perfectly preserved 1993 D Kennedy half dollar, untouched by circulation, becomes a time capsule, an object frozen exactly as it left the mint floor decades ago. What truly ignites excitement in the collector market is the possibility of mint errors. Coins struck off-center, with doubled dies, missing layers, clipped planchets, or unusual surface textures can transform an ordinary half dollar into a treasure worth thousands. These rare survivors are not created on purpose. They are accidents of history, and that is what makes them powerful. The idea that one coin escaped the system imperfect yet valuable captures the imagination. The Denver Mint itself has a long reputation for producing strong, sharply struck coins, which makes error pieces even more dramatic when they appear. A genuine error on a 1993 D. Kennedy half dollar is like finding a fingerprint left behind by the minting process itself. It tells a story of machines, pressure, timing, and human oversight colliding in a single moment. Collectors are drawn to Kennedy half dollars not only because of rarity, but because of what Kennedy represents. His image symbolizes ambition, youth, and the promise of a future that was never fully realized. Owning a Kennedy half dollar is, for many, like holding a piece of that promise in their hand. This emotional connection keeps demand alive year after year. In today's coin market, value grows slowly and steadily for coins that are well preserved, authenticated, and properly stored. While internet myths often promise overnight wealth, real fortunes in coins are built through patience, knowledge, and respect for history. Coins that survive decades without damage become increasingly desirable as fewer examples remain in top condition. The 1993 D. Kennedy half dollar also reminds us of a turning point in American money, when coins began to feel less personal and more forgotten. That very neglect is what fuels modern rediscovery. When people finally look again at what they once ignored, new appreciation is born, and markets respond to renewed interest. Professional grading plays a critical role in separating fantasy from fact. A 1993 D. Kennedy half dollar certified in an exceptionally high grade can command impressive prices compared to face value, especially when paired with strong eye appeal. The difference between a spent coin and a preserved one can be dramatic, sometimes meaning hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Stories of incredible coin finds are not lies, but they are rare. They happen when someone unknowingly holds onto something special long enough for time, scarcity, and demand to do their work. Coins reward those who wait, study, and protect them, not those who rush to spend or sell without understanding what they hold. The real power of the Kennedy half-dollar is not magic wealth, but transformation. It transforms curiosity into learning, metal into meaning, and history into value. Every collector who finds something special begins the same way, with a single coin and a question. If you own a 1993 D. Kennedy half-dollar, the wisest decision is not excitement or fear, but care. Store it safely, learn its characteristics, and respect its story. Whether it becomes a modest collectible or a rare standout depends on condition, authenticity, and time. Coins do not change fortunes overnight, but they do change lives slowly, by teaching patience, discipline, and respect for history. That is the true wealth they offer, and that is why the Kennedy half-dollar continues to fascinate generations long after it stopped being common money. In the end, the 1993 D. Kennedy half-dollar stands as a reminder that value is not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it sits quietly in your hand, waiting for you to understand what it truly represents. Next coin. The story of the 1989 D. Kennedy half-dollar begins long before the coin itself was struck, in the shadow of a nation that still remembered the shock and sorrow of President John F. Kennedy's assassination. Every Kennedy half-dollar, no matter the year, carries emotional weight, because it represents a moment when American money became a memorial. By 1989, this coin was no longer a circulating favorite, but it was still being produced quietly at the Denver Mint, marked by the small but powerful D that tells its origin story. In 1989, the United States was changing fast. The Cold War was ending, the Berlin Wall was about to fall, and America was stepping into a new era. Coins from this year were not made of silver anymore, and that detail matters deeply. Unlike the early Kennedy halves of the 1960s, the 1989 D version was struck in a copper-nickel-clad composition. That fact alone separates reality from rumor, and it reminds us that true coin value is not always about metal, but about history, rarity, and condition. The 1989 D. Kennedy half-dollar was produced in large numbers, which means most examples you find today are worth close to face value. This is where many dramatic stories online go wrong. No normal, worn 1989 D half-dollar will make anyone rich overnight. But coins are not judged by normal examples alone. In numismatics, the smallest difference can turn an ordinary object into a legendary one. What makes collectors' hearts race is not the date alone, but perfection. High-grade, uncirculated 1989 D. Kennedy half-dollars with flawless surfaces, sharp strikes, and no marks are surprisingly difficult to find. Most were stored poorly, handled, or released into circulation. Coins that survive in near-perfect mint condition can sell for hundreds, sometimes more, because perfection is always rarer than people expect. There is also the silent world of minting anomalies. Occasionally, a coin escapes the mint with an error. Misaligned strikes, doubled details, off-center designs, or unusual planchet problems. If a genuine, professionally authenticated error exists on a 1989 D. Kennedy half-dollar, its value can multiply dramatically. This is where fortunes are not made by magic, but by knowledge and verification. The Denver Mint itself plays an important role in the mystique. Coins from Denver are known for strong strikes, but that also means errors stand out more clearly when they happen. Collectors hunt these coins not because they expect instant wealth, but because they understand how rare documented mint mistakes truly are. Another layer of value comes from modern registry collecting. Today's top collectors compete to own the highest graded example of each coin. A single 1989 D. Kennedy half-dollar graded at the very top of the scale becomes more than metal. It becomes a trophy. That competitive demand is what drives prices higher, not myths of hidden silver. It's important to say this clearly and honestly. The 1989 D. Kennedy half-dollar is not a silver coin, and it is not worth millions in normal condition. Any claim saying otherwise is designed to attract attention, not to educate. Real collectors respect truth, because truth protects money. Yet this coin still holds power. Not the power to make someone a billionaire overnight, but the power to connect generations. It tells the story of how American coinage moved away from precious metals, how inflation changed design priorities, and how remembrance continued even when silver was gone. Many people unknowingly spend these coins, not realizing that condition matters more than age. A scratched, circulated example is common. A perfectly preserved one is not. This is where careful handling, storage, and professional grading become the difference between face value and collector value. The Kennedy half-dollar also represents a coin that Americans stopped using, not because it lacked meaning, but because habits changed. That disappearance from daily life gives modern examples a quiet mystery. They exist, but they are rarely seen, and rarity of visibility often fuels curiosity. Serious collectors never rush to sell. They research, authenticate, and wait. The market rewards patience far more than excitement. Coins that slowly gain recognition often outperform coins surrounded by hype. If you believe you have a special 1989 D. Kennedy half-dollar, the smartest move is not spending it, but also not believing stories blindly. The real path is professional grading, expert evaluation, and understanding why a coin is valuable, not just hoping it is. History teaches us that money reflects society. The 1989 D. Kennedy half-dollar reflects an America standing between old and new worlds, honoring the past while moving forward. That story alone gives it meaning beyond its denomination. In the end, this coin's true fortune-changing power is knowledge. Those who learn, verify, and respect history are the ones who succeed in the coin market. Not overnight, not through myths, but through patience, truth, and understanding. Next coin. The Kennedy half-dollar is not just a piece of metal. It is a frozen moment of American emotion. When you hold a 1992 Kennedy half-dollar struck at the Denver Mint, you are holding a coin born from memory, loss, and national pride. This design exists because an entire nation mourned President John F. Kennedy, and the coin became a symbol of hope rather than just money. Even decades later, the Kennedy half-dollar carries a presence that feels heavier than its face value. By 1992, the United States was changing. The Cold War had ended, technology was rising, and America was stepping into a new era. The Kennedy half-dollar was no longer used in daily transactions by most people, yet the mint continued striking them quietly, almost like preserving a tradition that refused to die. The 1992 D half-dollar was part of that silent continuation, produced for circulation but rarely seen in wallets or cash registers. Many people believe that all Kennedy half-dollars are silver, but by 1992 this was no longer true. Earlier Kennedy halves, especially those from the 1960s, carried real silver content. By 1992, the coin was made of a copper-nickel-clad composition. This does not make it worthless. It simply means its value comes from condition, rarity within grades, and collector demand rather than metal alone. The Denver Mint, marked by the small d on the coin, was known for strong strikes during this period. A 1992 D. Kennedy half-dollar in worn condition is common, but a sharply struck example with clean surfaces and original mint luster can become something collectors quietly compete for. Coins like this often survive in drawers, jars, or old rolls, unnoticed for years. What truly changes the story of a 1992 D. Kennedy half-dollar is condition. Coins that were never circulated, never scratched, and never cleaned can reach impressive values compared to face value. In very high mint state grades, collectors pay strong premiums because finding a flawless example decades later is not easy. Perfection is rare, even when the coin itself is not. There is also history hidden in why these coins disappeared from daily use. Americans instinctively hoarded half-dollars, especially Kennedy designs, believing they were special. This hoarding removed millions from circulation, creating an illusion of rarity. That psychology alone turned an ordinary coin into a collector favorite. Some stories online exaggerate the value, claiming these coins can instantly change lives. The truth is more grounded but still fascinating. No genuine 1992 D. Kennedy half-dollar will make someone a billionaire overnight. However, coins in elite condition can be worth hundreds or even thousands, and in the world of collecting, that is still powerful. Collectors are drawn not only to value but to meaning. Kennedy's portrait reminds people of unfinished dreams and a presidency cut short. Every time the mint struck his image, it felt like a quiet tribute rather than a business decision. That emotional weight keeps demand alive even today. Another reason collectors watch the 1992 D issue closely is survival rate. While millions were minted, very few remain untouched. Time is the enemy of coins. Every fingerprint, every slide across a table, every cleaning attempt permanently changes a coin's story. The untouched survivors become the stars. There are also errors and unusual strikes that occasionally appear. These are not common, but when they surface, they can dramatically increase value. Such coins are the result of human imperfection inside massive minting machines, turning accidents into treasures. The idea that you should never spend this coin comes from respect rather than fear. While spending it won't ruin your life, preserving a high-quality example is wise. Once a coin is damaged, its collectible value is gone forever. Preservation is where patience becomes profit. The Kennedy half-dollar is also a bridge between generations. Older collectors remember when silver still mattered. Younger collectors see it as a bold, oversized coin from another time. The 1992 D stands quietly between those worlds. What makes coin collecting powerful is not fantasy wealth but long-term understanding. People who study, protect, and pass down coins often discover value years later. Knowledge grows value more reliably than hype ever could. If you find a 1992 D Kennedy half-dollar, look closely. Check its shine, its edges, and its surfaces. Do not clean it. Cleaning destroys value faster than almost anything else. Let the coin remain exactly as time left it. In the end, the real power of the 1992 D Kennedy half-dollar is not overnight riches. Its power is history in your hand, a reminder that even ordinary objects can carry extraordinary stories. Coins don't change fortunes instantly, but they reward those who respect time, history, and truth. Next coin. The 1971 D Kennedy half-dollar was born in a moment when America itself was changing, healing, and searching for direction. Less than a decade after the shocking loss of President John F. Kennedy, his image still carried emotional weight, and every half-dollar struck with his portrait felt like a moving piece of national memory. When the Denver Mint struck the 1971 issue, it was not just making coins for commerce. It was preserving a chapter of American grief, pride, and resilience in metal. This year marked a quiet but powerful shift in U.S. coinage history. By 1971, the age of circulating silver had already faded, replaced by copper-nickel-clad compositions. Many people misunderstand this coin and assume silver lives inside it, but its real value is not in precious metal. It is in rarity of condition, mint errors, and untouched preservation. History teaches us that value does not always shine loudly at birth. Sometimes it whispers and waits. The Denver Mint produced millions of these coins, yet time has been ruthless. Most were spent, scratched, dropped, cleaned, and forgotten. They rattled through pockets, jukeboxes, and cash registers, losing their sharpness and dignity. Today, finding a 1971 D Kennedy half-dollar in truly pristine, original condition is far rarer than the original mintage numbers suggest. Survival, not production, creates scarcity. Collectors know a secret that most people overlook. Condition is power. A perfectly preserved 1971 D coin with full mint luster, sharp hair detail, undisturbed surfaces, and no signs of cleaning becomes a completely different creature in the coin market. In high-grade mint state, this coin transforms from spare change into a competitive prize chased by serious collectors who understand how few remain untouched by time. Even more intriguing are the quiet mistakes that escaped the mint's control. Die cracks, doubled details, weak strikes, off-center impressions, and planchet flaws turn ordinary coins into unique artifacts. These errors are fingerprints of human imperfection inside a system designed for precision. When such a flaw appears on a 1971 D Kennedy half-dollar, collectors do not see a mistake. They see a story that can never be repeated. The emotional connection to Kennedy himself adds invisible value. His presidency symbolized youth, optimism, and unfinished dreams. Every half-dollar bearing his face carries that emotional gravity. Collectors are not just buying metal. They are buying memory, symbolism, and a tangible link to a moment when the future felt fragile yet hopeful. The market for Kennedy half-dollars has matured slowly and steadily. Unlike fast hype coins, their strength lies in long-term trust. Over decades, collectors have learned which dates, mint marks, and grades quietly outperform expectations. The 1971 D sits in a fascinating position. Common enough to be ignored, yet rare enough in elite condition to surprise even experienced numismatists. Many fortunes are not made overnight by one coin, but by recognition before the crowd arrives. The people who win in collecting are those who understand timing, patience, and preservation. A single top-graded example, certified and verified, can command prices that shock those who once dismissed it as ordinary. This coin also reflects the end of an era. The half-dollar was once a symbol of everyday commerce, now nearly vanished from daily life. That disappearance itself fuels demand. When a denomination fades from use, nostalgia grows, and nostalgia always carries value. The 1971 D. Kennedy half-dollar belongs to that fading tradition. There is also a psychological element that cannot be measured. When collectors compete for the finest known examples, prices rise not because of metal content, but because pride, completion, and prestige are at stake. Owning the best becomes more important than owning many. The most powerful lesson hidden inside this coin is restraint. Many valuable examples were destroyed by cleaning, polishing, or careless handling. Those who resisted the urge to improve their coins unknowingly protected future wealth. Sometimes doing nothing is the most profitable action of all. This is why experts always say, never rush to spend, clean, or dismiss an old coin. What looks ordinary today may be extraordinary tomorrow under the right light, the right magnification, and the right market conditions. Knowledge changes everything. The 1971 D. Kennedy half-dollar teaches us that value is not always loud, shiny, or obvious. Sometimes it hides in patience, history, and survival. Coins like this reward those who respect time rather than chase shortcuts. While it may not turn every holder into a billionaire, it absolutely has the power to change a collector's path, turning curiosity into passion and passion into opportunity. That is a different kind of wealth, one that grows quietly and endures. In the end, this coin stands as a reminder that America's history lives not only in books and monuments, but in the small objects we once held without thinking. And sometimes those forgotten objects are waiting, not to be spent, but to be understood. Next coin. The Kennedy half-dollar of 1972 with the Denver mint mark is not just a coin. It is a silent witness to an America that was still healing from deep national wounds. Less than a decade after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, his face continued to travel through the hands of millions of Americans, carrying with it emotion, memory, and unresolved grief. Every 1972, D half-dollar was born in a time when trust in leadership was fragile, the Vietnam War still echoed in households, and the nation clung to symbols that reminded it of hope and unity. By 1972, the Kennedy half-dollar had already changed its soul. The earliest versions were struck in silver, shining with intrinsic metal value, but by the early 1970s that silver was gone. What remained was a copper-nickel coin, outwardly ordinary, yet inwardly powerful in symbolism. People often confuse this year with silver issues, and that confusion itself has fueled decades of rumors, myths, and dreams of hidden fortune sleeping in old drawers. The Denver Mint produced millions of these coins, and at first glance they appear common. Yet history teaches us that value is not always born from rarity alone. It comes from survival, condition, and the human tendency to overlook what feels familiar. The 1972 D. Kennedy half-dollar circulated heavily, used in casinos, banks, and daily commerce, which means truly flawless examples became scarce without anyone realizing it at the time. What transforms an ordinary 1972 D half-dollar into something extraordinary is perfection. Coins that escape circulation, untouched by hands, free from scratches, dulling, or weakness in the strike, are survivors of chance. They were not meant to last. When such a coin appears today in pristine condition, it tells a story of luck, timing, and preservation that collectors deeply respect. Then there are the coins that were never meant to exist at all. Errors, die cracks, double details, off-center strikes, and mint anomalies turn metal into mystery. These mistakes are fingerprints of the minting process, moments when machines faltered and history accidentally created something unique. A single dramatic error on a 1972 D. Kennedy half-dollar can elevate it from pocket change to a highly sought collectible. The fascination around this coin is intensified by its emotional gravity. John F. Kennedy represents youth, promise, and unfinished vision. Collectors are not just buying metal, they are buying connection. They are buying a piece of an era that feels distant yet emotionally close. That emotional value often fuels demand just as much as rarity. Many people believe the coin hides secret silver or unimaginable wealth, and while that belief is incorrect, the psychology behind it is powerful. Stories pass through families, whispers at flea markets, and viral videos have turned ordinary coins into legends. Legends matter because they bring attention, and attention creates markets. In the modern coin world, grading has become the judge of destiny. A 1972 D. Kennedy half-dollar graded at the highest levels becomes a trophy. These coins are no longer money. They are artifacts. The higher the grade, the fewer that exist, and the more intense the competition becomes among collectors who want the best of the best. The Kennedy half-dollar also carries a strange paradox. It is one of the most famous U.S. coins, yet one of the most misunderstood. Its fame makes people overlook it, while its history makes serious collectors return to it again and again, searching for the exceptional among the ordinary. Time has transformed the 1972 D. Kennedy half-dollar into a mirror. It reflects how Americans once spent freely without imagining future value. It reflects how memory, history, and condition can reshape worth. It reflects the truth that not all treasure glitters immediately. This coin teaches patience. It teaches that fortune does not come from fantasy but from knowledge, care, and realism. Those who rushed to spend or melt coins lost opportunity. Those who studied, preserved, and waited created legacy collections. In today's market, the value of a 1972 D. Kennedy half-dollar depends entirely on what makes it different from millions of others. Condition, errors, eye appeal, and provenance are the keys. Without those, it remains a common coin. With them, it becomes a sought-after survivor. The real power of this coin is not overnight wealth, but long-term understanding. It is a reminder that history rewards those who look closer. Coins like this separate dreamers from collectors, and myths from mastery. When you hold a 1972 D. Kennedy half-dollar, you are holding a chapter of American identity. Its weight is not silver, but memory. Its value is not guaranteed, but potential. And its story continues every time someone pauses before spending it. In the end, the true fortune hidden in this coin is knowledge. Knowledge turns curiosity into strategy. Strategy turns collections into assets. And assets over time can truly change a future. Not by magic, but by wisdom.